There's a certain sound that feels like cruising through a neon-lit city at midnight. Chrome reflections on wet pavement, digital dashboards glowing, limitless optimism in the air. And the rhythm section so tight it sounds like it works out together before rehearsal. That sound is Japanese jazz fusion. From the high-speed, technically jaw-dropping grooves of Cassiopeia to the smooth, elegant phrasing of Ryo Fukui, to the deep funk of Jiro Inagaki and his soul media, Japanese jazz fusion is one of the most diverse, soulful, and overlooked corners of modern music. In terms of musicianship and recording quality, some of the best Japanese jazz fusion rivals the prime swing era in the United States, the thing that originally inspired it. But how did jazz get to Japan? How did a country that historically valued strict tradition end up producing some of the most futuristic fusion music ever recorded? Let's find out. Before the Cotton Club Japan, before fusion bands, before virtuosic key solos, Japan spent over 2 centuries largely isolated from the rest of the world. From 1600 to 1868, during the Edo period under the Tokugawa shogunate, Japan enforced a policy called sasoku, meaning chained country. Borders were tightly controlled to protect traditional Japanese values and social structure. Society was organized into a strict hierarchy, samurai at the top, followed by farmers, artisans, and merchants. Despite the isolation, culture thrived internally. Kabuki theater, haiku poetry, joruri storytelling, and sumo wrestling grew in popularity. Japan was not culturally stagnant, but it was inward-focused. In 1868, Japan reopened its borders and began rapidly modernizing. Industrialization accelerated, urbanization increased, and the country became more engaged in global trade and politics. In the early 20th century, American trading vessels introduced jazz to Japanese audiences. According to Blue Nippon by E. Taylor Atkins, jazz was initially popular among upper-class listeners who could afford record players, but its appeal quickly spread beyond economics. Jazz symbolized modernity. It represented global awareness, freedom, and participation in a broader cultural conversation. For younger generations, it offered something emotionally different from rigid tradition. During World War II, Western influences, including jazz, were heavily censored. The government promoted nationalist identity and restricted foreign cultural imports. Does that sound familiar? After the war, during the United States occupation of Japan, jazz returned strongly. American soldiers stationed in Japan commonly requested contemporary jazz standards from local musicians. With censorship loosened and music more accessible, jazz grew rapidly in clubs and urban centers. From there, Japanese musicians began doing what Japan has done historically very well: absorbing an external influence, mastering it with extreme discipline, and then evolving it into something uniquely their own. And that evolution leads us to the real star of this video. Now let's talk about why Japanese jazz fusion sounds like it was engineered in a lab designed specifically for groove. I've got 6 key points to explain the beauty behind this incredible music, starting with number 1, the precision. Bands like Cassiopeia and T-Square did not just play tight, they played impossibly tight. The rhythm sections are locked in with machine-level accuracy, but they don't sound robotic. Drummers like Akira Jimbo combined fusion complexity with the funk pocket. Bassists glide between slap grooves and melodic runs without losing pulse. It feels like jazz musicians who also secretly trained for Formula One. A lot of the fusion, especially American fusion like Chick Corea or Miles Davis, could sometimes lean gritty or loose. Japanese fusion offers us polished and clean, very hyper-controlled jazz. And yet, above all else, number 2, its tone is bright, it's optimistic, and it's expensive. There's a tonal distinction between American and Japanese fusion music. Much of the American fusion from the 70s has this darker, earthier sound. While Japanese fusion from the late 70s and early 80s often features a glossy, colorful, futuristic quality. A lot of the jazz fusion in the similarly coded city pop is covered with electric pianos, chorus-soaked guitars, bright singing synth leads, and crisp high-definition production. Because of the recording technology at the time, however, it still remains warm. This music embodies a sense of technological optimism, which is fitting since it coincided with Japan's economic boom era. Overall, the music feels forward-looking, it feels futuristic. Despite that, it's not too futuristic, because funk is still the backbone of the music. Listen to Jiro Inagaki and his Soul Media's Funky Stuff, and it becomes immediately clear that subtlety is not the goal. The groove hits hard and it stays locked in, a la James Brown. Japanese jazz fusion leads heavily into the funk rhythms built on syncopated bass lines, tight and articulate drum patterns, and a sharp rhythmic guitar comping. The pocket is often deeply danceable, even when the solos explore complex harmonic territory. This is where fusion kind of shares itself with straight-ahead jazz. It grooves first, but it intellectualizes second. Fourth, the harmony in Japanese jazz fusion is lush but accessible. Fusion in Japan often makes use of rich jazz harmony, extended chords, modulations, altered tones, especially with upper extensions like the 9ths, 11ths, and 13ths of chords, that give music a wider, more spacious feel. Those upper extensions create color and the air in the harmony, allowing chords to feel open rather than dense. A lot of that harmonic language traces back to innovators like Miles Davis, whose modal explorations and use of space influenced fusion globally. Japanese musicians absorbed these ideas and applied them with clarity and melodic focus. There's a key difference. While some fusion can feel like a theory exam, Japanese fusion often feels like a soundtrack. The songs have direction, the arrangements breathe, and the themes are memorable. Even someone with no theory knowledge can still connect with the track immediately. Japan has also longly placed a strong cultural emphasis on craftsmanship and meticulous attention to detail across its art forms, which is why it's no surprise that perfection in the studio is another one of these points. That mindset clearly carried over into music production. Many of the jazz fusion albums of this era are recorded with remarkable clarity and balance. Each instrument occupies its own defined space in the mix, allowing listeners to hear the subtle interplay between bass, drums, keys, guitar, saxophone, without ever feeling crowded. The arrangements sound intentional, the tones are carefully shaped, and very little feels accidental. The result is fusion that feels redefined and deliberate. Essentially, fusion with serious quality control. My sixth point, its emotional tone. It's cool, it's calm, but it's not cold. What makes it especially compelling is that despite all its technical precision, it never feels stiff. The solos carry real excitement, the grooves feel joyful and energetic, the chord progressions often have a cinematic sweep that makes the music feel expansive rather than confined. There's a sense of possibility embedded in the sound, as if each track is moving towards something bigger. When some fusion styles can feel chaotic or heavily experimental, Japanese fusion often harkens back to what we know. It gives the impression of controlled liftoff, ambitious and powerful, but guided with clarity and intention. It works because it balances four elements almost perfectly: virtuosity, groove, production clarity, and memorable melody. The The musicians are undeniably skilled, often operating at extremely high technical levels. But that virtuosity never overwhelms the music. And what makes it especially compelling is the melodies remain strong and memorable. Even with advanced harmonies and intricate arrangements, many tracks are built around themes that stick with you. The music is disciplined without it being boring, complex without being inaccessible. It reflects musicians who deeply studied traditions like swing, bebop, funk, and rock, and then filtered those influences through a cultural emphasis on refinement and detail. The result is music that still sounds forward-thinking decades later. Even 40 years on, it feels fresh, it feels energetic, and it feels surprisingly modern. Japanese jazz fusion is more than just jazz in Japan. It's a musical philosophy. It takes the technical mastery of jazz, the infectious energy of funk, the discipline and the attention to detail that Japan is known for. It blends them into something both precise and exhilarating. It's music that grooves, it dazzles, it feels alive, all while remaining carefully crafted and sonically polished. What makes it timeless is that it balances virtuosity, memorable melodies, and production clarity without ever losing a sense of joy or forward motion. Decades later, it still feels fresh, futuristic, and inspiring. For anyone who hasn't explored it yet, Japanese jazz fusion is a world waiting to be discovered. It's a place where rhythm, harmony, and imagination collide in the most thrilling ways. Whether you're a jazz purist, a funk lover, or someone who's just looking for music that feels this way, it's a genre that rewards attention and invites movement. So put it on, turn it up. Let yourself be carried by one of the most unique, exciting, and unexpectedly powerful sounds in modern music. Thanks for watching.